Previous video we broke apart the forest cultivator. In this one we're gonna put it back together. Sourcing some new tires for it was not super easy. The options for a size suitable here for a 20-inch rim. There are a lot of tires available, but most of them are too wide. What I think we ended up going with, I think it's mostly used on wheeled excavators where you have a twin wheel setup. We had temporarily reattached one of the wheels to check for clearances. The wheel that refused to turn, they do have some brass bushings, all the wheels, and I guess the steel wheels that have not been taken apart. One has a lot of play in it, the other feels really solid. So I think it relies on brass bushings, but they are an odd size that it's not commonly available over the counter. We ended up with a plastic bushing for now to do a test here. Spent some time working here and there on the chain, trying to free up that one that wasn't stretched too badly. We did bring the old tires when we picked up the new ones to get rid of them. I censored this a little for your eyes. And the new tubes that came, because it was a kit with a protector and the new tubes for the tires and everything, but the valve stem has to be kind of angled in an odd way to get out of the rim in a good way. And we shoved some copper strands from a copper electrical cable in there to reduce the risk of pinching or damaging things, and then we actually bent the valve stem. It was quite easy to bend it. Put a little air in the hose, and after that rubber liner protector thing has to be installed to protect the tube. My dad did an amazing job with a wire brush and a angle grinder and cleaned up the rims, removed all the rust, and painted what will be in contact with the rubber. And then we had some tire lube and started putting the tire on there. We just had it halfway on there and some spacers underneath, and it was quite a struggle to get the valve stem to get far enough in there to be able to come out through the correct location. It's actually easier on the second wheel because it's kind of a bigger slit in the rim, not just a hole. Then this might be a little bit too wide, the tire, but it should work. But it required some clamps to push down the rubber to be able to fit the other side, and starting to install the lock ring. It took some fiddling around and moving the clamps, and it wanted to slip off, but after some rearranging and going back and forth, we started getting it to compress and line up where it should be, and everything looks good. It was pretty much the same procedure for the second wheel. And my favorite, the tire pressure gauge has stopped working. It's just plastic stuff, and there's a little pin in there that's kind of worn down, so when you push it into place, it's not opening up the valve. But I just pulled out the little rubber thing there, and then I cut that in half, and now it seems to work again, because this rubber seals up against the valve stem, and you get a pressure reading. Now that little plastic pin in the middle is long enough again that it will open it, and you can get a pressure reading. Here I have a better view of us, or I think it was mainly just me, but bending the valve stem because it's a 90-degree angle, and then it has to have another 90 to go straight out again, a little bit on the side. I just had the ring end on some wrenches and gently bent it. It seemed to be quite soft metal. There is kind of a plate on the rim to protect this, but I'm worried if this starts seeing some use, it might damage that valve stem, but I'll tackle that problem when it happens. some more clamping and messing around with the other wheel, and we could get that into place. It went a little easier. We had learned a little from our mistakes with the first one. Went around the lock ring all the way around, hammering that in to ensure it's firmly seated. You've all seen the videos where they shoot that ring off on the internet, and people are probably getting hurt in places where things come undone when you have high air pressure. We want to avoid that. Checking the tire pressure, I went with roughly around 3 bars of pressure, and the side project of trying to free up that chain, that was an ongoing project for weeks. Every now and then we passed by it and lubed it, and some heat in places and back and forth, and most of the rollers are moving by the time we installed it. I had ended up having to buy a 5 meter section of new chain, and the old one is just 3.5 meters. So we decided to remove the worst section that had the most stuck rollers. Realized that you can't just remove one pin. It's a lot easier to grind away and remove an entire link. It comes out a lot easier then. So we shortened that one and removed the section. And here is the brand new chain. And we had planned on actually cutting and doing everything, but then we got a little worried, what if we mess up and it ends up being too short. I didn't want that to happen, so we decided to wait with that. And a little side project this summer. This spring I lost power up to the garage, and it turned out to be a break in the cable up there. So we had to start digging up and finding the power company had it some years back dug down, and it was air lines to poles, but some sections of the power supply up near the house they had put underground, and they had damaged the cable up to my garage, and they had done a good repair there, but around that repair there had been some short. So we had lived on a temporary solution with a cable just on the ground for a while this summer, but we did a more permanent fix. It's still a temporary solution. It should be replaced the entire way at some point. Maybe a beefier power cable up there to the garage, but that's it for now. Well, the first wheel went in there without too much trouble, and now we're rearranging, so we are driving in the. Here I'm sounding a little annoyed because my dad questioned that we had to put the tensioner into place, but you have to flip that over before you install the chain, because once the chain is in place, it's too tight. You can't fold over that tensioner unit. And we could start getting it in place and making sure what length to cut it. And I held some metal piece behind it for a little bit of a stop when hammering out the pins. And we needed to have the most proper length. I had bought some half links to have options when installing the chains. And I'd seen that the chains had some half links in them. The old one, the worn out, the stretched one had half links on it at least. So we want it as tight as possible to don't have to tension it down that tensioner so much. So that went on there without too much trouble. The other side, well, both sides were cleaned out with the wire brush and so on. I put some silicone in that hole where the old stop bolt. We're not gonna bother with any of these stop bolts. It takes so much force to hammer in and out the axles that I doubt they will move as long as we keep things lubed up. We're discussing which way to install it now. We have ground away the mushroomed end, and it has some damage from the area where it was missing a bushing, where I've installed that plastic bushing, and we ended up with a plastic side spacer also, because we realized it didn't have a bronze bushing, because it has some like side spacers in bronze also. And then it was just a matter of getting things into place and hooking that chain up. My dad had done the tensioning and gotten them installed. That was done off camera, and it is ready for a little test use. Just pulled it with the tractor. It will later be pulled by the forest machine, as you have seen earlier. And it's pretty darn heavy. We tried the chain block to lift up the steel wheels at the back, but it felt like we needed to put too much force on it, so we took the wheel loader and helped lift one side, and then it was possible to pull it up and secure it, because you don't want the steel wheels down in the ground when you just move it. So it was secured like that, and we can pull it. This is quite close to the big house and the garage. It's a small area that I have not planted. I was planning on maybe if I want a place to put some material at some point and so on, I kind of left a little section here, so we figured it was a good spot to do a testing. The wheel loader helped lift it, and the chain block was used, and we could lower it down to do a short little test here to see how it performed before we brought it out into the forest and doing some real proper job. Well, you can see here that it seems to rip up that overburden, exposing some good mineral soil. Should be really good planting points. I will do a final video about it. It will not happen today, but hopefully in the not too distant future, where we cover how we hooked it up to the forwarder, and then a longer view of it actually working, and a couple of the problems that arise with it. It's nothing major, but we did find some small issues we need to address if it's going to be used more in the future.
Här kommer jag att få bli jättefin, men egentligen är det som att han drar med sig det lite för länge, så han vänder inte. Men han exponerar ju alltså, och lite grann har det väl ökat med det här tänket att du ska plantera lite djupare ner. Här väl sedan det var torra somrar. Nej, det har väl att göra med utväxlingen mellan hjulen och det där, men skulle du ha, det blir lite cirkus det där. Här. Ja, men här var att han bröt han lite i sides av att du for efter en stocker som gick som. Oj, här klev han högt när han gick upp på stubben. Han man tar då i och rycker sönder en stubbe, men här hade vi varit med ett tag. Ja. Tror du har kört på. Ja. Vi lyckas gränsla en glad tall här. Jag tycker det här ser ut att skulle kunna bli punkter det går att plantera i. Ja, du ska prova börja. Nu är det lite snällare här, men det verkar nog gå